Hello again, Nerd Squad. Welcome back to another list. Many supervillains believe they are in the right when it comes to their intentions. Some even seek world domination simply to make the Earth a better place, or to destroy the world to give birth to a new beginning, create a clean slate for the planet. In the end, some supervillains are labeled as villains as a result of the way they go about achieving their goals, despite the fact that often these goals could be perceived as being noble. Today we're going to take a look at some of these villains, the ones with plans we can maybe almost get behind, as we count down the top 10 supervillains with the best intentions. Which supervillain would you be most comfortable with coming to your rescue? Which supervillains do you predict will make our cut? Plug your thoughts and guesses in the comments below. Quick before we… alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Mr. Freeze. Victor Freeze only became the criminal Dr. Freeze after an experiment went wrong, causing his body temperatures to be lowered, meaning that he always needed to be kept at a colder temperature. As a young man, he was also fascinated by cryogenics, and some stories even getting sent off to boarding school because he froze a cat as a kid to study it. After finding love, his wife Nora is diagnosed with an incurable terminal illness. In an attempt to save her, he aims to cryogenically freeze her until a cure can be found for her illness. There are a few different versions of the way this ends up going for Freeze. He either works to avenge her after she dies in a lab accident, or works to raise money to cure her with his life of crime and his freeze ray. Granted, there is also a storyline where Nora is just a subject that Mr. Freeze becomes creepily obsessed with, but we're not going to focus on that one for the purpose of this list. Just think of Mr. Freeze as someone who does bad things because of true love. He doesn't necessarily want to do them, but he has to. Number 9. Lizard. I actually feel really bad for Lizard. Kurt Connors never intended to become a villain. He was simply working to create a cure for lost limbs by creating a formula that would help them to regenerate or grow back. Unfortunately, the serum he created transformed him into a monster. Many storylines actually paint Connors as a victim more than a villain, a brilliant mind trapped behind the animalistic instincts of a giant lizard. Connors consistently works hard to control his transformations and gain control over his mind while in the lizard form, while continuing to work towards the cure he originally sought while in his human form. Connors' intentions always remain heroic, even when the lizards are very much not heroic. You can't help but feel bad for this man and villain's struggle. At one point, his lizard form and mentality even caused him to eat his own son. Tragic. Number 8. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock may not always have the best intentions at heart, but as another brilliant mind on the list, he is aimed to do the best he can for others at times, though I will admit that he also often has something to gain from his heroic actions. Take for example his time as Superior Spider-Man. His goals as Spider-Man were noble, but he also took up the mantle so he could escape his failing body, transferring Peter Parker's consciousness into his dying body and leaving him there until it just fully shut down. Granted, he also relinquished Peter's body to a shadow of Peter's former self, which was actually still in his own body, after having some success in his role as Spider-Man, ultimately deciding that Peter was the hero that was truly needed after being defeated by the Green Goblin. Still, his intentions were obviously to be a hero in Parker's stead, and aimed to be an even better one at that, but Doc Ock just couldn't cut it. Number 7. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor's hatred of Superman may often taint his noble efforts, but there are many times when Luthor has made sacrifices for the greater good. He has teamed up with Superman on multiple occasions to help fight against various enemies, including Doomsday. He even joined the Justice League in the animated series momentarily and helped them defeat the Justice Lords, an alternate version of the Justice League who rule with an iron fist on the world they have come from, where they also killed their version of Lex Luthor. The Justice Lords have come to invade Earth so that they can transform it to mirror their own reality. When the Justice League go to stop them, they appear to be evenly matched against the Justice Lords, and Superman turns to Lex to help him. Lex agrees to do so. He uses an energy disruptor device to take away the Lord's powers and defeat them, and doesn't even turn the device on the League. Say what you want about his hatred of Superman, but Lex often knows when to put the benefits of innocence above his petty feuds. Say what you want about his hatred of Superman, but Lex often knows when to put the benefits of innocence above his own petty feuds. And he's a man of his word, because he promised he wouldn't betray the Justice League. And so he didn't. Number 6. Magneto. Sure, Magneto is sort of a anti-normal humans activist and founder of the Brotherhood of Mutants, but everything he does for the greater good of mutant kind. In fact, he and the heroic Professor X are out to do pretty much the same thing. It's just the way Magneto goes about fighting for mutant rights that makes him a villain. He feels that the only way to get humans to respect mutants' rights is through oppression and fear. In the new X-Men relaunch, House of X, he even works with Xavier to grant mutants freedom through establishing their own nation, nay, their own world. Krakoa. And you should see what is part of their plan together in House of X issue 5. I don't want to spoil it though, so I'll leave it for you to just read. But I will say that when Professor X and Magneto decide to work together, it already makes me see Magneto's intentions as being more noble, more good. If Charles is willing to work with him, then he can't be all bad, right? Number 5. Killmonger. The comics paint another story for Njindaka known as Eric Killmonger, who was resentful and felt unwanted. After returning to Wakanda, he appears grateful to T'Challa, but also expresses fear at opening the borders of Wakanda as his king has done. He later seeks to overthrow King T'Challa and rule the world. This last part is similar to Eric's intentions in the MCU though. The cinematic universe paints a nobler version of Eric as a child whose father, T'Challa's uncle, was killed by the former king, T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. Seeking to get vengeance, he returns to Wakanda, who keeps his wealth and resources as a secret from the world. Eric's goal is to take over Wakanda and rule so that he can wage war on the earth in an effort to remove the oppression imposed on African descendants around the world. I mean, war is never a great thing to do, but his goal isn't a bad one. He wants to help other people, feeling that Wakanda is wrong not to have done so in the first place and was wrong to have abandoned him. In fact, his intentions are considered so great that T'Challa actually learns from this fight over the throne and from his cousin. In the end, he decides it would be best to try and reach out, open the borders of Wakanda, and make an effort to help the rest of the world with their resources. Which is also what his girlfriend Nakia was urging him to do in the film, who was actually nothing really like her comic book version. Number 4. Poison Ivy. My favorite eco-terrorist. I've always seen Poison Ivy as having the best intentions at heart. What she wants more than anything is to protect her plants. Unfortunately, the way she sees things, humans and plants just don't get along. And she's not really wrong about that, especially in the modern age. Humans are actually one of the worst things for nature. We cut it down, we choke it with fumes, we tear it up and build condos in a parking lot in a mall. To Poison Ivy, our very existence threatens that of her and her babies, her little plants. Like any good mother, she just wants to protect them. Sure, if Poison Ivy has it her way, we won't be around to enjoy the planet, but it will also be kind of happier without us. I mean, at least in her mind. Number 3. Thanos. We are not talking about comic book Thanos here, but instead are turning to look at the MCU Thanos, who does appear to have good intentions at heart. If he has a heart. I don't know. Comic book Thanos wreaks havoc and kills in an attempt to woo Mistress Death, who is Death incarnate but whom Thanos is infatuated with. Or he was. He recently turned her down after she finally decided the pair could be together. Weird. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos declares he kills to restore balance to the world. He even has that cute and sadistic scene with little Gamora where he explains all this. Remember the one? The one with the blade where they're balancing it? You know what I'm talking about. Ultimately, his home world Titan became overpopulated, and Thanos saw this as the beginning of the end for his people. The planet is now desolate as the civilization seems to have long ago collapsed. In an effort to protect other planets from suffering from the same tragedy, he eliminates half of the population of every planet he comes across. Wanting to make this easier on himself, because you know, killing that many people is a lot of work, he works to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet, allowing for easier genocidal destruction with a mere snap of his fingers. As much as the heroes protest that this is not the way to go about this, and I do agree, this does seem like a simple solution to kind of a huge problem. Even real world Earth suffers from overpopulation, after all. Number 2. Ozymandias. A victim of his own ego, Ozymandias worked hard to create a plot that he believed would result in world peace. His plan was brilliant and elaborate, making it look like there was a greater alien threat incoming to band the world together and create peace. The part that makes him villainous is that he kinda put himself at the center of the plan, making it all revolve around him, seeing himself and his plot as the only / best way to save the planet. Adrian Veidt sees superheroes as a huge problem with the world and works to eliminate Dr. Manhattan, who he thinks perfectly symbolizes everything that is potentially wrong with heroes. He also eliminates anyone that gets in his way, killing the comedian and later framing Rorschach in a murder case. His plan even works, killing millions to save billions and end the war. I mean, it works at least for a while. Number 1. Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom is a genius and insane magic user who rules over Latveria. Beyond that, he has also ruled the Earth before, and even saved it a few times. As a villain, he doesn't seem to be interested in destroying anyone except his foes, the Fantastic Four, and even then, he confines that desire to usually just trying to destroy Reed Richards. He even helps Sue Storm give birth. In truth, his ego is what makes him villainous, and sometimes unsuccessful in his plots. He wants to be adored and just feel that he is better than other people, but often he doesn't show great interest in harming other people. In fact, he wants to prove that he is better often by being a great leader. As much as he despises the Fantastic Four, he even led their team at a time. And the crazy thing about Dr. Doom is he actually is a great leader. When he managed to rule the world for a while, it was peaceful, food was plentiful, and the economy was booming. So while he might not always be the nicest guy in terms of sacrificing individuals' personal freedoms. He sure knows how to make the world a pretty great place for everyone to live in. You just have to be willing to admit that he is the best, bow down to him, and possibly give in to some slight mind control. NBD. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope this list shows you just how good some bad deeds can actually be. At least the intention behind those bad deeds. Anyways, I personally feel like most well-designed supervillains just have one major flaw that holds them back from being seen as a good guy. But also, this flaw makes them more relatable, more human, as most superheroes don't really have big flaws. That's why I love villains and believe that each one is entitled to a few heroic moments in their life. What are some of your favorite heroic moments when it comes to villains? Or who are your favorite villains who you think are really just trying to do good stuff? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're on the way down there, remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring our bell for ever more nerdy notifications. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.